Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello and happy day, inspiring possible people. I hope that wherever you are listening in the world, that life is going your way. And if it's not, that's okay. You know, life comes with challenges and I hope you keep pushing through. But today, hopefully we can bring you some encouragement, inspiration, and maybe some real life practical things that you can implement in your life to help you find ways to really be able to be present in the life that you want to be present in. You know, so many times we're often thinking about the next thing, or we get stuck in some of the details or rabbit holes of thought processes that we don't even realize are there. And you may also even have these subconscious habits that you don't even realize that you're doing, and you just keep on doing them and you're wondering why things aren't changing. And you're like, if I could just figure out how to move past this, I feel like I could get into a different place. And so if that is you, congratulations, you are listening to the right episode because I have an expert in this today, and her name is Amy Kemp. And she is actually the owner and CEO of Amy Kemp Incorporated. And she works with a lot of high achieving individuals in life and in business. And she's had so many intimate conversations with people. She understands how deeply thought habits can impact every part of our working lives. And so she's going to come to us today to help us guide and hopefully even guide me through some of my stuck patterns. And she also wrote a book, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today too, called I See You. And that's a guide for women to make more, have more, and be more. And guys, you can be a part of this conversation too. So keep listening. But if that sounds good, then you came to the right place. So I'm super excited to welcome Amy to the show. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much. I love the little taste of Louisiana in your accent. I can hear it.
Well, when I was young, about 18 or 19, I lived in England for a period of time. I did a study abroad program for about 6 months. And we had people from all over the world at this school. But the one accent that always kind of got a little bit of laughs or, whatever, they would pick on me a little bit is mine because it was so Southern. And, there was that Louisiana,
So good.
hidden in there. So,
Yes.
yeah. Well, tell me a little bit, Amy, I always like to hear how people got to where they were serving the people they serve. And maybe you can start off with telling a little bit about how I See You came to be.
Sure. So professionally, I've worked in many different lanes, all of them with the through line of my passion being developing people. So started out as a high school English teacher, went into sales, and then grew a business for over 20 years. I was in sales leadership. I was leading a very, very large team of about 1,000 people across the country. I'm good at sales, but what always drove me was the development of people, particularly leaders in that lane. While I was working in that business, I accidentally started a business.
I love when that happens.
9 years ago. I just was being chased down in every part of my life by women who had titles and influence and impact and an experience of feeling isolated and alone and overwhelmed and exhausted. And they were all coming to me and talking to me, but they didn't know each other. And so I just thought, if she could meet her, that would be so cool. And so I happened to be in Salt Lake City, speaking at an event there. I had a coach that I had worked with in my professional world, and we had stayed in touch long after our work. The work I did with him, which he uses the tool that I use now, was the most transformational work I'd ever done in my professional life. And I'd done a lot of different work. Okay. So I meet him for dinner while I'm in Salt Lake City. And I say, I keep feeling like I should get these women together. And this is the stupidest idea because I have so much going on right now. I have this big role. My kids at that age, at that time were, I call it the Uber era of parenting where everybody's in something and no one drives. You're just
Yeah, and you're the
driving them.
transportation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then there's just a lot, right? And it was just really busy. And he said, I really think you need to take action on this. And on Monday, we're starting the certification to be able to use this assessment tool called the Habit Finder. So this was on a Thursday. I mean, I'd never thought about being a coach. I wasn't like trying to start a business. I didn't, it wasn't that. But it felt so crazy. I don't know if you've had this happen to you, but
Oh, 100%, yes.
it was
Like,
so,
why in the heck would I do that?
yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
But also it felt so congruent and so
Mm.
like I had
This
to
is what
say
I need
yes.
this is what I need to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah.
Started the certification, started out with just 2 groups of women, 2 groups of 8, who I worked through this curriculum that corresponds with this assessment tool. And the business grew faster than I could have imagined. And so now this has been my full-time work for probably 7 years, where I work with people one-on-one and then women in small groups using this tool, that's measuring your subconscious habits of thinking.
Okay, well, let's dive in and talk a
Yeah.
little bit about this because I'm fascinated and I'm like, ooh, maybe I should take this assessment. So tell me a little bit about kind of how this was transformational for you, and then maybe
Mhm.
how you've seen this work with other people since you've been doing this for what, 9 years now? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It continues to be transformational. No, I mean, obviously the work, but the interaction with this material around subconscious habits of thinking, there are layers of it that I'm discovering still in myself every day or identifying in myself. So basically, about 80% of our thoughts are happening below the surface. We're absolutely unaware they're happening on purpose because we are hardwired to survive. If there's a habit of thinking that helps us survive, our brain creates a groove and makes that groove deeper and deeper. It's easy for it to travel, so there's no resistance. It takes very little energy. As a silly example, we don't want to have to consciously remember to blink. There's a subconscious habit of thinking that, like, your body does that, right? However, a lot of these subconscious habits of thinking that help us survive become problematic when we no longer need them. So I'll always say, when you employ a survival mechanism past the point of needing it, it becomes detrimental and damaging. So I have an example because sometimes it gets a little vague through here. So I was on a group call. The conversation, one of the people in the group is kind of shifting in a transitional season out of one business opportunity into another. And she needs to close down a part of her business that is no longer providing income. It's no longer serving a purpose. But for a long time, decades, this particular gathering that she hosted was core to her income and her livelihood, to
And
her
probably even a little bit of
survival.
identity. Like I also do.
Identity. Yes, we talked about this too, right? It would be like telling a pastor, "No more church," right? That's like
Yeah.
kind of the equivalent. Okay. She's having a hard time closing it down,
Mhm.
right? And so we were talking about like, that's a survival. When that thing helped you survive and you did it over and over and over again, and it was paying your bills, no wonder when you say, I'm just going to stop doing this, your brain is like, danger, 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 danger.
Yeah.
However, what it's costing her, because she's employing a survival mechanism past the point of needing it now, it's almost making her physically sick to do this event
Yeah.
because she's so dreads it. She doesn't enjoy it. It's draining. It's not serving a purpose like it used to. It's done totally out of obligation. It's costing her so much, right? So that's just an example of like how a survival mechanism that serves you in one way can really become detrimental. Um,
Yeah.
so another example, I'll give you another example of like a habit of thinking that I see a lot. This one is in the assessment tool I use. It's called being fantastical. What it means is that your brain can very vividly see what it is that you want to create. So, like, if you're thinking of building a business or you're even imagining maybe like an event you want to put on, and it can be as silly as like a birthday party, or it could be as
Mhm.
big as like a huge business event, right? Your brain, when you have this habit of thinking, can very vividly imagine what it is that you want to create. The problem is typically it's a little bit fantastical. Like it's a little bit where nobody's annoying. There's nothing that goes wrong. There
Like,
isn't any.
everything just goes according to plan, and it's just
Yes,
gonna implement. You have the vision clearly, and you're gonna be able to just create this with no resistance.
100%, which is totally a fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Then reality shows up and you inside your body legitimately will respond as if a bear is attacking you, right? You will go full fight or flight because this vision is being attacked that you've become really attached to because you've played it over and over and over again so many times in your head. And so then you can kind of like become discouraged or like overwhelmed and really get into a spiral. In the worst case scenario, sometimes we go to like, this career isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to be making more money. You then feel discouraged and overwhelmed. And then you take it even a step further and give a nice sucker punch to your self esteem by saying, what's wrong with me that I can't build a profitable business? And so, very quickly in your head, it goes from fantasy to this cascade that crashes into your self worth and it just takes its hit, right? So,
Yeah, and so I know probably we all have these, like, again, these different types of habits of thinking that really just put us in a place that, what starts out as maybe in this situation a positive maybe way of thinking, then gets derailed really quickly
mhm,
and then
yeah,
leaves you in a pile that you then have to figure out how to remantle yourself
yep.
to get back to at least a baseline of,
Totally. Yes. Now, people will say, well, is it bad for me to dream, to have a vision of what I want to achieve or create? No. But here's where it's dangerous. So I imagine it to be like a fire hose with a heavy brass nozzle, this habit of thinking. If you're pointing it at a fire, it does a lot of good. If you lose control of it, it can really hurt you if it's just flopping around, right? So you can go to the vision of what it is that you want to create. For example, right now I'm putting together a retreat that I'll host in the fall. We're hosting it at Santa Rosa Beach, which probably is not that far from you. Anyhow, um, sorry, I'm
it sounds
distracted.
great.
It's great.
Is that in Florida?
Yeah,
That's in
it's in
Florida?
Florida,
Yeah,
yeah,
mhm.
but I've got, like, this beautiful house. I've been I can go there and create this experience in my head, okay? That's not a negative. The negative is, am I coming back to today and actually working on the millimeter steps that bring that vision to reality? Or am I just living in this fantasy of something that I hope to create someday, right? So I can go there so long as I don't take up residence and live there. I can
Yeah.
go there for the inspired idea and then come back and take the millimeter step. This habit of thinking also can swing to catastrophe. So I'll give you an example from my book about this. I had a call with a potential client and he was so great. We had such a meaningful conversation. I just when you've really connected with someone.
Yeah, you're like, "I
And
like that person, and I've already talked to
yes,
him for 10 minutes, but I can tell we're
yes,
kindred spirits."
yes. And so at the end of the conversation, he said, I just want to run this by my wife before I commit to working with you. I'll get back to you. And I knew he would. I didn't have any hesitation around it. So a couple days passed. I was really busy. I kind of forgot. And then like 3 or 4 days later, I still hadn't heard back from him. And that was, like, kind of weird, and I started to just tell myself this story, like, did I not really connect with him? Was I did he think that I was being pushy on that? Like, I started to lean into all these weird catastrophic, like, "What?" Anyhow, sent a quick email, didn't hear back, days passed. Out of the blue, I get this message from him that says, "Oh my goodness, I just found this email in my drafts. I've been wondering why I didn't hear back from you." And basically, the email said, "Let's go. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
I'm ready to do this." Right?
Yeah.
Well, so my brain, like, my brain went to the worst case scenario of why he wasn't getting back
Yeah,
to
like,
me.
I must have read this wrong, I said something wrong. I mean,
Totally. So you can go to catastrophe. And I say it this way a lot to my clients. If you're going to tell yourself a story, you might as well tell yourself a good one, right? So I have a choice. He doesn't respond. I can tell myself the story that I was pushy and weird and misread the situation and, my prices are too high. Like I could go down a long list of things that I could give for reasons that my brain would make up that would be negative. I also could be like, man, he must be really busy. I bet he's really swamped with work right now. Or I could tell myself any host of stories. And if I'm going to make one up, I might as well make up one that gives me more confidence rather than less. Because what
yeah.
happened is, like, when I went into the next call that wasn't with him with that tinge of like self doubt or hesitation, or I'm not sure I can trust my intuition, right? Then I'm not showing up for the next person as well as I could. And that will hinder
Mhm.
the growth of my business more than anything. So, like you said, then I have to recover from that before I just show up at the baseline of where I am.
Yeah, well, and I don't know about you, but I mean, there's still stuff that sometimes hits me sideways that I'm like, "Where did that come from?" But it's, like, normally a reaction to something that I even know. I'm like, "I know I'm reacting to this in such a visceral way that there has to be something that it's hitting up against." And there goes
Yep.
that self-awareness piece, but, like, there's something that's hitting up against for me to react on that level. But then once I'm in reaction mode, right, where my body is
Mm.
just really trying to protect me because it feels at risk from whatever this thing, and it could be something honestly I like read in an email or scroll on, like, let's say social media, and then I'll start to feel weird inside and I'm like, wait, this is really weird. But if I let it sit and stay, and it's harder for me, then it becomes harder for me to get out of it because then I'm just then complaining about this, or then I'll get upset about that, or then it just is like a domino effect of
Yep.
this cascading thought that then is harder to reframe or challenge or identify the further you get along.
Absolutely. And physiologically, what happens is all of these crazy chemicals are released into your body, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all these because you're fight or flight, right? You go
You're
into
like,
like
yeah.
this, right? And then your body has to release cortisol to like suppress and to neutralize all of those chemicals in your body. And cortisol over the long run has some really harsh health impacts on our bodies, right? On your heart, on your blood pressure, on your blood sugar. Like, it's not good to have too much cortisol in our systems for too long. But when we live in this constant swing between fantasy and catastrophe all day long, our bodies can just be in this constant like fight or flight mode, right? And none of it's really real. We're not really being attacked by a bear. I
Yeah.
mean,
And like
but
in
our
the
body
case that you
responds.
said
Yep,
about the guy that you met with, like, I'm not saying that everything you thought couldn't have been actually what was, but it
totally.
wasn't likely and it wasn't what it actually was. It was just something getting lost in,
Yeah.
and then we've then created this whole narrative that's so not based in any kind of fact. It's just what we're perceiving in the moment.
Yeah. And the way you walked yourself through it, you probably don't even know. I mean, you've probably been trained to do this, but basically, that's one of the ways that you change your habits of thinking is that you recognize it's a habit of thinking. You get yourself out of it and into kind of like the observer's chair, and you say, like, oh, I'm having this feeling. I'm having this reaction. What's going on? And once you do that, you have a fighting chance against it because then it's like, oh, that's not me. That's just happening, right? Like that's a habit of thinking. And we are not our thoughts, right? We
Yeah.
aren't. Thank the Lord.
Thank
Right?
thank God. Okay. I agree on
But
that.
our thoughts are really busy and they feel very real to us. But when we get
Mm.
in the observer's chair and we name it, then at least you have some agency and you can make a different choice around it. Or you can at least kind of choose the path you want to take. I'll give you an example of this too. When my book came out, this is crazy, but when you publish a book, you can see when it opens up for pre-orders that books are being sold, like through Amazon. You can tell by the rankings and everything. But you don't get access to the dashboard where you can see how many copies have been sold until the day of the launch. So there's like this whole
Oh, okay.
pre-order
So you have
period. And then
no idea how
you have
many people have
which
pre-ordered.
just feels
It
so
could be
crazy to
2, it
me.
could be like yeah, I mean, what are they trying to
Yeah.
hide? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. So, anyhow,
That can lend to them habits of thinking, I guess is what you're about to
okay.
get to.
Yeah. So here's what happens. I get in my head this fantasy, okay, of like how many books have sold in the pre-order period just based on like Amazon rings. Mind you, I've never published a book before. I don't have any empirical data from which I'm making this, but I have this.
Like, yeah, what's normal? How's this gonna
I have
look? Yeah.
no idea, right? But I have this number in my head that I think it is. And without even really knowing it, because I'm at high risk in this area, I get really attached to this number. Like I'm pretty sure I'm getting there. Like I'm confident in this number. And again, I have no idea how I even picked the number. I don't know. So I get on this call the day that the book launches, and the woman from the publishing company is walking me through the dashboard, how it works, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just get to the number where it should. Like, I just want to get to this number. So she says, she clicks on something because it's like a Zoom call. And she says, okay, here is the number of books that have sold. And the number that comes up is about a third of my fantastical
Number
number.
in your head, yeah. Okay.
What I experienced in that moment was like, the full physical. I started sweating, my heart is racing, my stomach, like, drops, you know? I just, like, go into this panic. Again, why?
But
Nothing
there
about
and
my
then
life.
no context too to
No,
be like,
no,
"This
but
is
it
good,
doesn't
this is
matter.
the
Like,
one."
it's
Yeah.
real, right? It's real to me, and
Mhm.
I don't really remember what else she said on that call. I just remember that, like, after that point, I was not really listening, okay? So, I'm here at my house. I walk out to the kitchen, and my 18-year-old, he was 18 at that time, he says, "Hey, mom, weren't you supposed to find out about your book sales? Like, how many books you've sold today, or wasn't it around now?" And I said, "Yeah, I just did." And he's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well, it was just so much lower than what I thought it was gonna be. I'm so disappointed." And he kinda, like, cocked his head and he said, "Well, isn't it, like, the first day?"
Leave it to a son to just, like,
Right.
point it out, like,
But
okay, mom."
instantly, I wasn't putting words to my thoughts at all up until the moment he said that, and at that point, I was like, "I'm being fantastic." I was caught up in this habit of thinking, a totally fantastical attachment to an outcome as a condition for my happiness and feeling of value and success, right? And as soon as he said it, I was like, oh, and my whole body chemistry like changes, right? I just whoosh, I was like, oh, I know exactly what's going on here. But had I stayed in that cycle that I was in, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I shouldn't have never done this. This was a bad
Oh, you
idea,
might have
right?
went into a depression, you know what I mean? Like, "I can't get out of
Totally.
bed, I just released this to the world, nobody wa" like, it
Yeah.
just
And
can go in a
guess
whole
what
different.
that's gonna prevent me from doing? The actual millimeter steps that would promote the book and sell more
To get
copies
to
to
the
reach
number.
the number that I want. Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Like, it so becomes resistance that isn't real, but it's real. It would have
Yeah.
prevented me from showing up for those actions with the level of energy and confidence that would actually attract what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, and I just start to think about how many people, and myself included, I'm going to throw
Mhm.
myself up in here because we all
Yeah.
have these habits of thinking. But like, just to think about how many times people haven't kept going or they've let those thought patterns define their next step that kept them from actually taking the step to create the reality that they actually in their mind first envisioned, you know? And
I
and
find
and
it
it
to be more common for that to be the case than for people that actually have external obstacles holding them back.
yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah,
There
I
are people
completely
who
agree.
do face real external obstacles. I don't ever wanna discount that. There are real things that happen. And there are also, like, industry disruptions and things that happen, right? But for the most part, what I witness is that it's this stuff going on in our heads that really keeps us from moving forward more than any external thing.
Yeah, well, and I'd love to point out too that it was just that one question from your son that
Oh,
helped
yeah.
you then bring so much awareness, and then also then completely then switch the train of thinking. Whereas before, you know, for you, it might not have ever happened unless he would ask that question. I mean, I'm assuming at some point somebody might have brought some data or a question
Totally.
that had been like,
Yeah.
"Hey, come on, let's put this in perspective here," and then you'd be
Yes.
like, oh, man, I was at this panic that I just spent all this and I think about the time writing a book too. I can't imagine,
Oh,
like, I've
yeah.
spent so much time, energy, I've been so vulnerable,
The
I've spent
vulnerability of it.
all this stuff
Mhm. Yeah.
creating, and then but I have this idea of what I think it should be, and then when it doesn't hit that, then I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should just give up right now on the floor," you know what I mean? But it was that it's your son being like, "You know, mom, isn't today the first day?"
Well, and
I love that.
there are a few things that disrupt subconscious habits of thinking that give you a fighting chance against them. One of
Oh,
them
yeah,
is
let's
what
talk
I
about
just
those.
yeah, I mentioned,
Okay,
like, you naming it, right? Like, you saying, "I'm noticing something's going on here," and you're, like, separating it from yourself, right?
okay.
One of them is laughter. So, when he said that, I laughed. Like, I did laugh. It was funny. But there also like, there's one habit of thinking that I work with people on a lot. It's called obsessive. It's for people who think a lot. We tend to get very attached to our ideas. We think the way we do things are right and the way everyone else Yeah, like, we get
Wrong.
really attached, okay? And one of my clients said she was high risk in this area of thinking, and she said, "I didn't really believe you. I was sort of miffed that you even said I had this habit of thinking until our Halloween party when my husband put the salad in the blue bowl and not the orange bowl, and I had sort of a vision of what I wanted the table to look like, and, like, what came up in me was so strong, right? Like, I almost, like, raged about and then she said I caught myself and
Like,
was
how
like,
dare you put it in that bowl?
"Yeah," but she said, "I started laughing out loud because I thought, 'Oh my gosh, this is a ball.' Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody's gonna care," you know? But she said, "I would have before said something, reacted, or just angrily switched it out and been sort of miffed about it. And like, for what? Right? But the
Yeah.
laughter helped her pull her out of it. So laughter's another thing. Physical movement. Sometimes I'll even like stand up, turn around in my chair, and then sit back down and just
Oh, I
like,
love that. Something so
no.
easy.
Yeah, no, or you can take your hand kind of like, imagine an axe chopping into a tree, but your 2 hands are like the axe in the tree, and just say, like, "Stop," because it will interrupt your like, the physical movement will interrupt the subconscious habit of thinking. Talking out loud to yourself also works, where you can say the thing out loud, which is kind of what you did. You probably have done it so much you can do it internally, but a lot of times when you're first doing that, you have to, like, say, "What's happening right now is that I'm freaking out because I became fantastical about this goal, and it's not really real. But if you say it out loud to yourself or to someone else, that can disrupt it. And then music. Music can allow us to pull out of a deep groove of thinking and shift into something different, which is really interesting. But like it allows us to kind of, I don't know, it just changes the
Yeah,
the
no,
the
you're right.
pattern of our
Listen,
thinking.
I went to a conference one time, and we were talking about this that, in my line of work, it's more, again, thinking, thought patterns, mental health, things like
Mhm.
that. So I was at a counseling conference and you still learn things along the way. Like there's so much to learn. I just will never completely understand the human thought processes, body, all the things. But we were sitting there and the woman said, "Okay, everybody, I want you to," and this is gets to your point of because I think you said something before we got on there that you can't outwork your thoughts.
Mhm.
So I want to highlight that was something, guys, we talked about a little bit before we pressed the record button. But I remember sitting there and she's like, "Okay, I want everybody to close your eyes." And you've maybe heard of this exercise before. And she's like, "Okay, I want you to really put all of your thought processes into play right now. And I'm going to give you something that I don't want you to think about, but I want you to try really hard to not think about this thing I'm about to tell you to not think about." Okay. And so we're like, oh, closing our eyes. And I'm like, okay, I'm really ready. I'm like sitting here with my eyes closed and my hands hugging my seat. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really make this happen. I'm gonna do what she says that we're not gonna be able to do. I'm gonna not think about this thing she tells us to think about. And she's like, okay, what I want you to do is to not picture a large purple elephant. You know what I mean? Something so simple. And so then she asked the whole room, she's like, okay, everybody, give it your best thought to not think about that. And when you get to a moment, please open your eyes. So then we're all opening our eyes looking at each other. And she's like, okay. So I'm just curious who was not able to envision a large purple elephant in their mind. And then of course everybody in their hands were like, we all are seeing this large purple elephant in our mind, right? And it just goes to show what you're talking about is that sometimes you need these other things to interrupt.
Mhm.
And they did say, they're like, look, music, because you and also singing, they said, because
Yes.
you cannot think and sometimes sing at the same time, which is really ironic.
Yep.
But it can just it's how do you jar yourself from these thoughts that you're not gonna be able to just say, like, "Stop thinking that." I don't know about you,
No.
but me, every time I've tried to be like, "Stop," like, I'll have these random, sometimes intrusive thoughts where people might have experienced this before, where you just have a thought that you're like, "Where in the heck did that come from?" And that makes me so uncomfortable, I do not wanna think about that thing that just popped into my head. But the more I'm like, "Stop thinking about it, stop thinking about it doesn't go away, it just gets louder. So what you're saying is doing things like whether it be being aware, "Okay, I'm having this uncomfortable
Mhm.
thought. I'm gonna witness as an observer," or I put down, you said laughter, physical movement,
Mhm.
saying it out loud to somebody else,
Mhm.
or music, or things to
Yep.
really help you just interrupt those.
Totally. And it's funny, you can say really hard things or weird things or scary things out loud, and they will dissipate.
Mm.
Like, it's pretty much gone. I try to remember this when, like, my son will call me from college because sometimes as a parent, your kid calls you and they're, like, having a bad day. My mom tells this story. One time I called her from college, and I was having a really bad day, apparently. I have no idea. But, like, I
Yeah,
was
you probably
just
don't even remember
so
it, but she does, I guess,
yeah, I
huh?
just vented all the things that happened, and then she said for the next I think it was, like, 2 days, she was just beside herself with worry about me being at college, being unhappy, and all this stuff, and then she called me, it was, like, 2 days later, and she said, "Well, I was just checking out how you're doing." I was like, "What are you talking about?"
I've been so
Like,
worried about you.
never thought about it
You're like, "I
once.
just went about my life. I just let it out, and then I'm going about
Totally.
my day."
Totally, yeah. In fact, it's funny, my son texted me or called yesterday, and he had some hard things happen during the day, just normal, like, college stuff, right? And I was like, oh, just thinking about him, and I was kind of worried about it. So then last night, he sends me this text. He plays basketball in college, and he
Okay.
said, "We've got some really good guys on our team, people I'll be friends with for the rest of my life 100%. I love it here." I'm like, "Well, why am I why am I worrying about you?" Like, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, but it is so true. It's you
Yeah.
know what? One thing that I'm sure you observed as you've been doing this kind of work, holding the space for,
Mhm.
women and men and people and all in between. There is just really something special about just being there and witnessing, and it doesn't have to take much. You just have to be there and acknowledge it. And then sometimes it is that just verbal process. I mean, I can think I had a conversation yesterday, and this thing is still not resolved. I need to take action on it. But there was something that happened that I'd received some information about, and I was like, oh, like I was really angry. And I'm not somebody who's quick to anger. That's not like my first
Mhm.
emotion that I go to. But I was like, I'm angry. I'm disappointed. And I had like let it lie because sometimes I don't know about you. If I like take action right then, it's probably not going to be my best response. So I've
Yep.
learned over the years, Christy, give it some time. If you're this upset about it, you need to give some bandwidth to it. But I really wanted to hear my perspective of my friend because I knew she would have some good guidance on what to do in this situation. So sure enough, like I've just let it go because I'm like, I'm going to put it over here in this container and I'm going to wait till I talk to her. So it's been about 5 days, 6 days since this thing has happened. But I'm like, okay, here, I have an opportunity to talk to her. I'm going to bring it up. So I told her what was going on and I just got it out there. And she was like, yeah, I would be angry too. I understand why you're feeling that way. This is what I would do. Or what do you think you should do? And she's like, I can tell you're getting a little angry." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am a little bit." But seriously, like, not 30 minutes later, I was fine. You know what I mean? We had done our conversation, I was over it. Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that it's still not there,
No.
but it wasn't affecting me to the point where I couldn't move on to other things during the day or do
Yep.
other to do other projects or whatever. But I think that sometimes, again, it's people, like you said, and that's why I love the title of your book, "I See You,"
Mhm.
because sometimes you just need to witness what somebody's experiencing, and that can help them kind of escape maybe some of those habits
Ugh,
of thinking.
I say that all the time. I think my clients do some pretty remarkable things. They really do. Like, sometimes I think, "Oh my gosh." And I don't even a lot of them do things that are so complicated or, like, specialized that I'm not really sure I could tell you what they do. Like, I can
Yeah, you're like,
kind of
"I
give
don't
you a
really
basic.
understand it all. I just know you have a lot of
Yeah,
responsibility and you
yeah,
do this a lot of thinking in your life."
totally. But I know that when they have a chance to sit in space with someone who really just sees them without expectation or agenda, they work through a lot of it on their own.
Mhm. Yeah.
They really do, or that's all they needed was just to say it out loud in a space that was appropriate and safe and, where they just can get it out. Because that's the thing, right? Like emotions, once we feel them, they kind of do dissipate a lot of times once we kind of let them go on down the river. Or
Yeah.
if we give them space to just feel it, just to feel scared, to feel angry, whatever it is. So, but yeah, it's really this title of my book. This is funny. The publisher didn't want me to call it I See You. They wanted the title to be more focused on me, but this book is not about me. It is not even about my expertise. I really did write it for a very specific person. And I really do. The thing that I do that's unique is that I see them. I see these people so clearly. And they are people who, while they're very visible, a lot of times people don't really see them or see their lived experience. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's a gift I'm sure that you give them and probably a gift to you. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but, like, I know for me, it is a gift to really be able to see somebody and hear what
Mhm.
their thoughts are, because then people don't get to always see this because they may not ask the questions or hold the space or be in a role where they get to do this kinda work day in and day out, but,
Yep.
you realize really quickly that we're on the outside, people may seem one kind of way, but internally, we're all fighting our different battles of these subconscious, thought habit patterns or however you want to,
Yeah.
classify it, but things that are going on internally that on the outside you would think, oh no, that person never struggles with that. Or like you said, you deal with people that are doing these incredible things that have a lot of influence and impact and maybe even income.
Yeah.
they may be perceived as like having it all together, very, intact. And then inside, there's still all of these blocks that they have to be able to figure out how to move through and
Mhm.
things that can still keep us from really, being able to live truly as ourselves because these thoughts we're battling with them on a day-to-day basis. So
Mhm.
if somebody does want to read this book or kind of get to know you a little bit better, and maybe you can tell a little bit who this book really in your mind is definitely for,
Mhm.
where can people find it and how can they connect with you?
Yeah. The book was written for women they're ambitious. They're hungry for more income, impact, influence, kind of have that fire burning in them. One time someone sarcastically said to me, like, when is it going to be enough? Like, when will you be satisfied? Or kind of snarky, you know? And I
Mhm.
remember saying back to her, I hope when I'm dead.
Yeah.
like, like
I
sometimes I
resonate with that,
wish,
yeah.
yeah, sometimes I wish I didn't have that ambition because I tend to attract friends who are more content by like just their wiring. But I was born this way. Like, I was
Yeah.
born with this kind of fire in me to, like,
Do as
create.
much as I can while I'm here, baby. You're
Yeah,
gonna make
right.
it.
I wanna create, right? But
Yeah.
they have reached a point where they're out of time and energy to work more hours, and or they don't want to. I don't wanna miss out on the rest of my life. I wanna give real meaningful energy to my work that's passion driven and purposeful, but I also wanna have a life outside of it. And so it's not for the person probably just starting out, it's for the person who's traveled a little bit of road, has gotten to this place through hard work. But to get to the next place, you can't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's no more hours. So then what? So then that's where my work comes in. It's like then what? Then you get to do the excavation work. Like then you get to dig down and say, okay, what are the habits of thinking that are really survival based, but keeping me stuck where I
Yeah.
am.
They're no longer they got me here, but they're
They're
not gonna
no
get me
longer
there.
serving me.
Yeah.
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 Okay, awesome. Well, okay, I
Oh,
know we're gonna link up a few things, but where can
yeah.
people find
I
you?
should
Yeah.
tell you where to find me. amykemp.com. So my name is very short and easy, AMYKEMP.com. A couple of things on the website that are fun. Obviously, there's a book link where you can order the book, but you can get the book anywhere you order books. And it's also on Audible. A lot of people ask
Oh,
me that.
awesome.
And it's my voice too, so a lot of people ask me that too. But amykemp.com, there's a book section that has some really cool resources around the book, obviously links where you can purchase it as well. On the website also, you can read about my work, but you can take the Habit Finder assessment, which is the measurement of these subconscious habits for free. So it's a fun tool, and you get your results right away. So that's a really great, like concrete next step that you can take as well.
Okay, awesome. We'll make sure we
Yeah.
link it all. Y'all check it out, honestly. I know this resonate. I know that people listening, they're like, "Oh, yes, this may sound like me." So if it sounds
Mhm.
like you, go find Amy and get her book. I see you. But Amy, I do have a question for you that I like to ask my guests. If you were to go back to maybe, I don't know if it would be English teacher you or sales
Mhm.
leader you, or I'm maybe feeling called to do this thing and I need to step out on it, or even like maybe little Amy, I don't know. But somewhere along your journey of a former self, if you could go back right now as you are today and give yourself a piece of advice or maybe an awareness of a habit of thinking,
Mm.
I don't know what you'd want to say to yourself, but what's something that you wish you could go back and gift yourself, like a word that you would want
Mhm.
yourself to know?
Um, there is a saying in the work I do with my clients. It says, "You are rare, and there is value in all rarity. Therefore, you are valuable."
Ooh, I love
But
that.
what I would say to myself is the thing that makes you feel different in every group, or the reason you don't fit in sometimes, or the reason that you kind of do things differently isn't a negative. It's like the best part of you. Like the thing that makes me rare is actually the thing that is like my magic. It's the place where when I'm working from that place, it is me doing it, but there's something bigger happening through me. And I used to think, well, why am I not like everybody else? Like, why, like I don't fit in, I don't match. And what I would say to myself is like, no, don't. Please don't. There's enough of everybody else. Like, do the thing that is rare, be the thing that is rare and celebrate it and really like magnify the rarity instead of trying to fit into like a
Hide it
mold.
away or fit into
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard. I know when we live in a world where people just seem to kind of like assimilate together and they just seem to like, oh, well, they kind of are doing this whole thing and you're doing this over here. To really appreciate just the uniqueness for all of us of who we are and what we bring to the
Mhm.
table. So I really
Yeah.
love that. Well, and Amy, I'm appreciative and I want to
Mhm.
acknowledge you for also tapping into that and being like, okay, I'm going to go full tilt into me, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I'm going
Yeah.
to figure out how I can also help other people see that rarity and value that they bring to the table and help them really lean into being truly who they are. And so I appreciate you coming on the show today for writing this book. Guys, I hope you get a copy of it. Appreciate your time today. And if you do listen, you know that I try to leave you with something that I'm taking away. And I write my little notes over here. And so I think, we're going to leave with what Amy just said. Like, you are rare. Because guess what? There's only going to be one of you on this planet ever. That's crazy to think about. You know what I mean? And there's gifts and talents and abilities and things that you might think or do differently that you think, oh my gosh, I don't necessarily fit them all, or that person doesn't get me. But guess what? That's what makes you special, just like Amy reminded us. And so maybe you can go out today and just be the rare person you are and lean into that and really lean into the things that you feel you're being called into in this next stage of life. So until next time, folks, have a great day. That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.